Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mitch McConnell speaking. And I just want to let you know that I have been the unfortunate recipient of Trump's mean-spirited and diabolical letter. Everything he said about me is wrong. Do I look like a dour and sullen and unsmiling political hack? What else did he say about me, Mitch McConnell? Many Republicans are because of their anguish and contempt over camp and the Republican Party. In Mitch's Senate over the last two cycles, I single-handedly saved at least 12 Senate seats. That was by the grace of God. That wasn't you, Trump. More than 8 in the 2020 cycle alone. And then came the Georgia U.S. Senate seat, but McConnell matched the Democrats' offer 2,000 stimulus checks with 600. I was the recipient, an unfortunate recipient, of Trump's savage and diabolical rage and his mean-spirited sentiments. I tried my best. I didn't have my Mitch tonight. I just did not have. Sometimes you have Mitch McConnell and sometimes you don't. I didn't have my Mitch tonight. My Mitch McConnell. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump opened up a can of you-know-what. Trump trashes Mitch McConnell's searing new statement. Trump, once aligned with a Kentucky Republican, termed him dour, sullen, and unsmiling political hack. Former President Trump released a scathing statement Tuesday targeting Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Trump, once an ally of the Kentucky Republican, rebuked McConnell using terms harsher than those of most Democrats. I love when they... It's interesting that the underlying theme is, well, obviously Democrats would speak in... in a more negative light, right? I mean, Trump is a Republican, McConnell's a Republican, Mitt Romney's a Republican, the Lincoln Project people, oh, that's right. They're, they've completely imploded because of their, immoral and possibly, allegedly horrendous and despicable and immoral activity and criminal. They're Republican. I love when this is a Fox News article, but I love when people are like, "Well, he was actually the letter was even more scathing than anything Democrats would write." It's like, well, yeah, there's a reason for that, because President Trump's pretty much taken over the Republican Party. Yet you still have people like Mitch McConnell and others who. McConnell, I'll say this in defense. Please defend me. In defense of Mitch McConnell, he does lead a political party that still has Mitt Romney and Ben Sasse and Adam Kinzinger and others. Liz Cheney. Kinzinger's not a senator, but he still has to. There are senators like Ben Sasse and Mitt Romney that are never Trumpers. Now, and then you have Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. You still have an element of the never. You still have a faction of the never Trumpers within the Republican Party. That's going to end in 2022 when you have primaries that remove the never Trumpers especially from the House. So the House of Representatives will be more aligned with President Trump. 3 out of 4 Republicans in the latest poll said they support President Trump. 2/3 would actually leave with him if he started his own political party. 3 out of 4 want him to be more involved. He still has an 80 to 90% approval rating. Hit subscribe to this channel right now, ladies and gentlemen. We're on our way back to 200,000 subs. We're almost at 182,000. Let's get there. You can go to hagoodman.com to read my writing on The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist. You can see my debates. If you want to support my voice long-term to my new Patreons, thank you so very, very much.
But tell your friends about this channel. Ladies and gentlemen, naming McConnell a dour-selling and unsmiling political hack, Trump said that the GOP would never again be respected or strong with McConnell at its helm. This is... Okay, so in terms of why McConnell had to make the statement that he did after voting to acquit President Trump, he didn't have to make that statement that, well, Trump is morally responsible. He didn't have to make that statement. But see, the thing is, it's like you're dealing with a political party that hasn't come to terms with the fact that President Trump's accomplishments were very good accomplishments. The beginning of peace between North and South Korea is a good thing. Détente is a good, very good, paradigm-changing. First president to step foot in North Korea. President Moon Jae-in of South Korea stated just recently that he wants Biden's administration to continue what Trump started. That's good. That's more than what President Obama or Bush did. Okay? Much more. And infinitely more, infinitely greater in terms of an accomplishment. I want to know, tell me an accomplishment, a foreign policy achievement from President Obama or the Bush years. I want to know a foreign policy accomplishment that ranks alongside or that is in the same category or league as the Abraham Accords, the peace between Israel, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and détente between North and South Korea. Tell me something that President Obama did that's a lasting legacy, aside from him destroying Libya with a failed NATO intervention that nobody talks about but me. You would think that people would be talking about that in this era of, an emphasis on morality. So was it a moral endeavor to engage in that NATO intervention? Well, they engaged in it to save lives. Did it? No, it did not. It turned the country into a failed state. So how on earth can anyone say, well, President Obama acted in the interests of the Libyan people? How can anyone say that President Bush, the worst president of all time, George W. Bush, acted in the interests of, engaged in any moral endeavors? His foreign policy was based on immorality, trusting intelligence operatives that have been wrong since the Bay of Pigs, the Gulf of Tonkin. Then you had WMD, and he destabilized an entire region of the planet. And we're still there now because of his failed foreign policy ideas that were pushed and advocated and furthered by the Lincoln Project people and other neoconservative organizations that slithered their way into the Democratic Party. Being retweeted, I don't have Twitter. I haven't had Twitter for 2 years. So being retweeted by Twitter, by people on Twitter, means nothing. Bernie Sanders and AOC have been retweeted a million times, millions of times. But they still don't, they still haven't passed the Medicare for All bill, Green New Deal legislation. These are things they promised their voters. And then you have Mitch McConnell, and the good thing is that, in his defense, he does have to play politics. That's his life. Trump doesn't play politics. Thank God he's not on Twitter. See, he can release statements, and we're all going to talk about the statements, but he doesn't have to be on Twitter. Being on Twitter it became a liability, a political liability for President Trump. McConnell said Trump bears responsibility for the January 6th Capitol. Okay, suggested he voted not to convict on impeachment count because he's no longer president. See, again, McConnell. The interesting thing is, even if he believed that, if Democrats believe something, they still fall in line. It's a difficult thing because President Trump demanded loyalty, should have received loyalty because he was president, because he did help them, but should have also understood that he's not going to get loyalty from political creatures like McConnell. So maybe, instead of President Trump should have had the wisdom to not push for protests that day. There was no need for that. And it was like, there was just no need for that. He had already conceded prior to that. Essentially, he had already conceded it. There was nothing good that was going to come out of that. And because there needed to be, there needed to be dialogue, discourse, debate, and discussion. President Trump and the White House, advisors or, Republicans close to President Trump, whether it was Ted Cruz or Josh Hawley or people, he should have reached out and said, look, go on, whether it was Joe Rogan or MSNBC, CNN, get the message out. Here's what I want the American people to discuss, debate, and to learn about my vantage point. Preaching to the choir does not work. It worked to get into the White House. It didn't work towards the end of President Trump's tenure. You can't preach to the choir. You can't preach to the choir because you're president of the entire country, and you have to deal with Republicans like Mitt Romney and Ben Sasse. So if you haven't convinced them, let's put it this way, you at least have to get them to acknowledge certain points of certain contentious issues. They didn't even acknowledge those issues were contentious. You see what I'm saying? Not only did CNN and MSNBC ignore anything that President Trump was saying, Mitt Romney and Ben Sasse didn't even think there was a reason to be, concerned or to focus on anything that President Trump was trying to convey, which we can't talk about. But there needed to be a dialogue and discourse and a debate and discussion. You can't just, even Newsmax isn't talking about. There's a reason that the protests were just a horrendous thing. Those people should be alive today. 5 people should be alive today. And what I'm trying to say, and I know that there might be some people here and there who mistake what my point is. President Trump generally has made the right moves, especially in terms of accomplishments like, signing the First Step Act or, allocating more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever, which is a fact. See, all of the good things that he did, he doesn't get credit for. He doesn't get credit for because of people like Mitch McConnell. But Mitch McConnell also, at times, just recently stood up for President Trump. Was he completely loyal? No. From McConnell's perspective, he's probably thinking, oh, well, why should I be completely loyal? I voted to quit. But why did you even have a protest that day? Oh my God. President Trump is doing the right thing by calling out McConnell, but he should also think of, and I know that some people might find this not smart or, wrong, a bad strategy, but he should also think of ways to get a person like McConnell on his side. So it's good because McConnell's always going to be there, even if he's not Senate Majority Leader. He'll always be, he'll be a Kentucky senator for a long time. In Mitch's Senate, the last 2 election cycles, I single-handedly saved at least 12 Senate seats, more than 8 in the 2020 cycle alone. Okay, and we should have won both U.S. Senate seats, but McConnell matched the Democrats' offer of $2,000 stimulus check with $600. That's true. That was horrendous. See, this is the thing. Republicans, McConnell makes no sense. He's like, oh, we can't give that much money. We have to be fiscally conservative. But why don't you push to open up state economies? The Republicans say, okay, well, we'll do whatever Democrats say regarding, tanking their state economies. And then they say, no, we can't give that much in the stimulus check. We have to be fiscally conservative. It's like, no, what you should have done is provided the country with an alternative vantage point, which is what usually Republicans and Democrats do. Democrats have pretty much controlled political discourse for the past, year, more than past 4 years, everything has been Trump is horrible, Trump bad, Trump mean. And Trump and McConnell found themselves at odds in the aftermath of the 2020 election. But when McConnell urged his colleagues to vote to certify... There's no question President Trump bears moral responsibility. He came for the president again on Monday in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. There you go. So this is why President Trump really went after him. There's no question the president bears moral responsibility. His supporters, unhinged falsehood, he shouted into the world's megaphone. His behavior during the chaos is also unconscionable from attacking vice president. Here's the issue. There should have been debate and discourse. There was no point. See, I understand where President Trump is coming from, but at the same time, if you have Mike Pence, if you have McConnell, and even if you have Ben Sasse and Mitt Romney, why are they acting that way? Yes, they're thinking of themselves, and yes, they're never Trumpers, and they're getting love and admiration from media, and they're trying to soak it all up. But if he's playing the game of politics, okay, in business, if you have a competitor, you have to look at whatever competitive advantage you have, or the features and benefits of your product, and trying to make a better product than the competitor. You play the game of business. Why not play the game of politics? I'm not saying that President Trump shouldn't have done this. What I'm saying is there should be other strategies involved than just the bulldozer and sledgehammer. But here's Trump's full statement. I know he's going after McConnell for what McConnell said, but here, Trump's full statement below. The Republican Party can never again be respected or strong with political leaders like Senator Mitch McConnell at the helm. McConnell's dedication to business as usual status quo policies, together with his lack of political insight, wisdom, skill, and personality, has rapidly driven him. See, isn't this so much better than Twitter? So, I mean, a lot of the things he's saying, they're correct. Has rapidly driven from the majority leader to the minority leader, and it will only get worse. The Democrats and Chuck Schumer play McConnell like a fiddle. They've never had it so good, and they want to keep it that way. We know our America First agenda is a winner, not McConnell's Beltway First agenda or Biden's America Last. Okay, and then he goes on to say a lot of things that needed to be discussed and debated and investigated. President Trump should have at least scheduled meetings with McConnell or found a way to get people on his side. If he focused more on getting Republicans, because McConnell was not Ben Sasse. He's not Ben.
I'm not Ben Sasse at all. What are you talking about?
He's not Ben Sasse. So you might say, there might be people watching saying, "Well, AJ, what are you talking about? McConnell deserves everything he gets." It's like, yeah, I get it. But at the same time, so you can look at this Fox News article, you see the whole, how quickly he forgets. Without my endorsement, McConnell would have lost. But that's the thing that's what President Trump never got, even though he's like, pretty much controls the Republican Party. This is what I'm trying to say, ladies and gentlemen. If you've stuck by me here for 18 minutes, he's expecting loyalty, just like, okay, the Democrats run on legal graft. They're a political machine, like Tammany Hall in the late 1800s. The loyalty is not derived from, when they demand loyalty, they do so when no one's looking, and they do so with incentives like money and book deals, and it's not like they tell the publisher to give the book deal, and it's not like they tell CNN. Well, sometimes they do, actually, in the campaign emails. You saw Debbie Wasserman Schultz calling Chuck Todd. But they have a well-oiled machine, and it works because it behooves them to just push one vantage point. They get the media love, they get the admiration. Any scandal is swept under the rug. It's a political machine Democrats have. Republicans don't act like that, or they don't have that type of political machine. Maybe they did, but they don't now. And President Trump, although he's right in saying, hey, you didn't, hey, McConnell and this Republican and that Republican, you didn't help me when I needed you, but you have to give them a little bit more incentive to do so. Create a debate and discussion and discourse on a national scale when it comes to truly contentious topics, instead of simply simply staying on Twitter and communicating on Twitter, and not building whatever. I don't like that word coalition, but there were people that he had Republicans like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz. He should have had Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell, and invited Mitt Romney and Ben Sasse there as well, and invited him and Kinzinger. And if after the invitation or after the meeting, if they didn't want to attend, or if there was a meeting that they attended, at least he could have said, gentlemen, ladies, look, here's my vantage point, the evidence, whatever. But he didn't do that. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. He's taking McConnell to the woodshed, which is good, but again, it's not a long-term strategy. It's a short-term tactic. The tactic is good. He's a counterpuncher, but it's not wise in the long run. He has momentum. The majority of the Republican Party will go wherever Trump goes because he's a populist. Just like Bernie Sanders was a populist. Okay, Trump, he wants to end perpetual counterinsurgency conflicts. That's one of the main things that binds former Bernie Sanders supporters to President Trump, and Republicans to everyone to President Trump. He opposed the Lincoln Project from day one. He did a lot of great things in terms of prison reform. Lots of great things. They're overshadowed now because of the drama. President Trump should focus on the art or the game of politics, and then continue taking over the Republican Party. Give me your thoughts.